Hey everybody, I am Haley Gray, and this is my dear friend Victoria Bentley, and we are here tonight to cause a ruckus,
Hey,
doing our weekly Tuesday night shows, and we should really come up with a name for these.
yeah, we
And
should.
yeah,
Maybe
tonight's
you can come up with an idea for us.
uh-huh. Tonight's topic is your vibe attracts your tribe. And if you are catching us on the live, give us a hashtag live. If you're on the replay, give us a hashtag replay and let us know that you are watching. We are excited to have everybody here. We were talking about a really interesting
Event.
phenomenon that we've seen in business. Hey, Beth, good to see you. Yeah, I haven't washed the makeup and the eyelashes off and everything yet. So
You look
I'll
fabulous.
make it through tonight. Thank you. This is kind of unlike me, but I kind of enjoy it every once in a while.
I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And, it's interesting how, we talk about your vibe attracts your tribe. And you made a comment just before we went live about how, when you are in business and, you're wondering how things are going in your business. And it's important to really look at the people you are surrounding yourself with.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before. We all of us have a bank account. I mean, and you go to the bank and it's hi
Mhm.
Sally and it's hi Vicky and
Mm,
your name and they're friendly or they're not.
right.
And chances are you don't know who the board of directors is of that bank. You don't know who the CEO is.
Mhm.
You know who the teller is. And if the teller is unpleasant or uncaring or
Mhm.
curt, or you're going to go to a different bank. So
Yeah.
people need to be very mindful. Business owners, entrepreneurs need to be very mindful of who they surround themselves with, because people who contact your company who maybe have never met you are talking to your admin or they're talking to your VP or something. And if that person is not reflecting you well, you could lose that sale, you could lose that business, or you could lose your reputation. People could make an assumption about you that might not be true at all, but because you have um, an, an, a bad experience with the front line, you could lose a lot. And I never understood why people want uh, those auto attendants on phones in companies. Dial 1 if you want Haley, dial 2 if you want Vicky. Um, no, you want a real person answering the phone, in my opinion. And I had
You
a law
do.
firm for 25 years. And sure, after hours, it goes on auto and, leave a message for Vicky on one, whatever.
Right.
I also had a woman who was my office manager and my personal assistant who had never worked in a law firm, but she knew how to talk to people. And people who were calling me because they were in big trouble. I mean, I was a family law attorney.
Right.
And she would talk and she would listen and she would take sometimes 5-10 minutes and say, you know what, you need to come in and sit down with Vicky. And her closing rate, and I know that sounds very callous, but her closing rate was in the high 99 percentile. And people would say to me, oh, that Anita was so nice to me on the phone. Well, they're in trouble. And boy, oh boy, if we can't be nice to you on the phone when you're in trouble, then what good are we? You know,
Right. Exactly.
if we can't be courteous, friendly, or listen or whatever, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's
Right.
going to happen. And you and I have been talking over the last couple of days about
Customer
people.
communication and
Yes.
people around and
Show me
yeah,
your friends and I'll show you your future. You know,
absolutely.
if you surround yourself with arrogance,
Mhm.
you're going to turn a lot of people away.
Yeah. And I've seen
Pomposity.
And I have seen several cases of it recently in my business, which has been really a huge surprise to me because, people have been coming out of the woodwork, I guess is maybe the way to describe it. But if you think about it, we're seeing these things going on in our businesses. And when people interact with you as a business owner, or as an employee of a business, you're representing your business and it affects your future.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little
Are
bit.
you going to have a business or are you not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a friend, and I have to be very careful how I say this, but I had a friend who had a business at an airport.
Employee of a business.
And he fixed airplanes, he pumped fuel,
Mm-hmm.
his business did, he housed other people's airplanes. And he had a woman who worked for him who kind of did you all remember the show Frasier? Do you remember the
Mm-hmm.
character Rob,
Yeah.
who worked for Frasier, who had the great voice and worked on the radio, but slept with everyone who walked through the door? And
Mm-mm.
my friend who owned the business would have to talk to her and say, now listen, you can't go in the back with this guy, or you can't. And I laugh to this day and I think, oh my word. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. And I think about, can you imagine? Can you
Right.
behaving like that in a business? But you know what I'm saying? That
I do know.
what is that saying about his business? That he knew she was selling more than fuel. It just blows my mind. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
And I see lots of things that just kind of blow my mind, in business, when it comes to professional conduct, just professional conduct. And it's not just even, when we talk about, vibe attracting tribe and everything in the online space, you talk about, your mindset and having a high vibe and all of that kind of a thing. I even have experienced, varying degrees of, issues with professionalism, really. It's like if you...
Say more about that.
So, I mean, there have been a few cases where, a client needs something and they need it in a timely manner, but they're not responding. And then they get upset at us for not responding to them quickly enough, and you kind of have to wonder, do I have to send you a carrier pigeon and a telegraph and, smoke signals to get your attention for a project that you want us to work on? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, you're going to need the name, rank, and serial number to do the work. And they're going to have to provide it. It's not all on you.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like with digital marketing, with what we do with websites and social media and ads and stuff, there's definitely an element of, information that we need from the business owner. There's quite a bit of information that we need from the business owner.
Oh, heck yeah. Like, what are they expecting? If you can't have a legitimate, let me go back to the law firm. I had what I considered the red light, green light, yellow light punch list. And I'd say to the client, what are you expecting? Well, I want the house, I want the car, I want the bank accounts, I want the vacation house, and I want all the stocks. You're not going to get it. I can maybe get you this. We'll give you a green light on this. Definitely red. Oh, and I don't ever want him to see the children again. Well, that's a red light.
That's not happening.
Well, that's maybe a yellow light. We'll see. Maybe I can do that for you. But unless you have those conversations with client, you cannot manage expectations. And
right.
I think
right. And you can't
say,
just...
here you go, here's my money, take care of it. And
you can't just assume that you're going to hire an attorney and that they're going to magically go to court for you and win every single court case out there. You know, and I have run into a lot of situations with clients where we have to really set their expectation because they're like, oh, just go do me a website. I have a few questions. What exactly does just go do your website? Well, I just need my branding. And there's usually a just involved, you know, or I just need you to do this. Okay, well, we have a few questions. And it's not that we're trying to be difficult. It's that we have, you know, a need to understand how you think, what you value, what's most important to you. Because, you know, if we don't have clear expectations set up front, then that's a problem. And it always evolves.
Like what color do you like? You know, how am I going to design a logo if I don't even know what color you like? Yeah.
And what does professional look to you?
Yeah. What is a business standard in your business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's different for every single business. Even if I took 2 attorneys' practices, the way that they choose to get clients could be very different. You know, a realtor or a real estate closing attorney is going to get clients in a very different way than an attorney who's a divorce attorney, or from, you know, an estate attorney, because an estate attorney can easily do workshops on, you know, here's what you need to do to prepare yourself. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure that most divorce attorneys are not going to go out there and go, here's what you need to do as a workshop to prepare yourself for divorce.
Yeah, like who's going to show up? They might see their next door neighbor. People aren't going to be talking about that.
No, they're not.
They come in, you know, with sunglasses on and on a hat. You know, they don't want to be seen. It's embarrassing. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. And you did a really charming lingerie website that I laugh at every time I see it because it is so clever.
Percolating?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know, you know, I didn't know if I could say the name or not. And I think, well, that's most certainly not appropriate for a law firm. You know what I mean? But you got to have the conversation. Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah. What exactly, you know, what kind of a look and feel are you looking for in your business? You know, and there's a lot of really, you know, critical, very sensitive discussions that we have to have when we start talking about marketing, especially when we start talking about doing ads for clients. You know,
give me examples.
Oh, so one example that I give people fairly often that they kind of start to understand is when we start talking about doing ads, you know, I really need to understand, do you want clients onesies, twosies, or do you want them in batches? You know, is kind of one of the questions, because if you're doing workshops, you're going to be getting clients in batches. Otherwise, you're going to be getting them onesies, twosies. Well, when we start doing ads, a lot of times, you know, we need to understand the exact nature of the business. And then the question that I have is always, well, how many clients can you take? How many leads can you handle in a month? Right. So
there's hours in a day and you've got to do the work and go to court. Mm-hmm. Right. How many, what is a good caseload for you?
What is a good caseload, right? Mm-hmm. So how many leads do you need to generate in a month, and how much is a client worth to you? So I had a very real, very frank conversation with a friend of mine who is a particular type of business. And he's like, well, you know, have you thought about doing ads for me? And I'm like, I would love to do ads for you, but here's how much it's going to cost on average per client for you to acquire a client. And I said, it would probably cost about $250, but your average sale is $750. Is that really going to be worth it to you? And he's like, nope. You know, so you have to understand, but if your average sale,
to give them another product.
But if your average sale is $10,000 per client that you acquire, it could be a really great way to get clients, right? So there's a lot of very real questions that we have to answer there about, you know, how much is a client really, really worth to you? And then there's also questions that I have about your infrastructure in your business. And I can give you like this example. So imagine that you're an attorney and you handle divorces, and like you did, right? How many new clients do you want in a month? Is it 1? Is it 5? Is it 50? Well, if I'm generating leads that would result in 100 new clients a month, it doesn't matter.
Time for me to hire some other attorneys.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter how great the ads are if you can't service all those leads that I'm bringing in because you don't have the attorneys on the back end to handle it.
That's right. And then everybody's unhappy because you haven't taken care of the work.
Right. Exactly. So you have to
managing expectations.
And you have to manage expectations, and you have to discuss what appropriate timelines are for particular types of ads and really look at scaling. How fast can you scale up and all of these kinds of things? And do you have the infrastructure in your business to handle 200 leads this month?
So how available are people to hear things like that? What makes one person be able to hear you and another person not?
It depends. Sometimes people really get it. And sometimes people are like, oh, Katie, bar the door, full steam ahead. I want as many leads as I can get. And usually I have conversations with them about how many leads do you really want in a month? How many new clients can you really handle? And they'll kind of look at me and then it's like, okay, so how many new clients can you actually handle in a month? And how many leads are you really willing to chase? Because certain types of ad yield different qualities of leads, of clients, right? So if you have, lead generation A that is super cheap, but you know that 90% of those leads are not going to be any good, but it is, 1/20th or 1/30th the cost of a higher cost lead. Is that a better or a worse lead for you? Well, if the higher cost, leads to, a slightly higher conversion rate, so you're chasing fewer people. So, but what's your time worth it to you?
Well, but there's another question that I think about, and I think about this in my practice. And I had colleagues who only wanted to represent doctors, lawyers, Indian chief. They
right, of course,
high end, visible CEO client. Play golf with that client, go to the country club with that client, travel with that client, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully get a turnaround of $150,000 a year per client.
Right.
Oh, get a gun and shoot me now. Those are the clients who call you at 3 a.m. I mean,
right, because they own you.
They own you. That's right. And so one of the questions that has to be asked is who is your ideal client? What are you looking for?
And what kind of relationship are you looking for with those clients?
My idea when I practiced was, it was almost like MASH medicine. You bring them in, you patch them up, you stop the bleeding, you solve the problem, and you get them on your way. You don't want this to be an annuity.
Right.
Now, people did, because there's a lot of money in that. But for me, is I want to fix the problem and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they still had money left over. They were happy with me because they didn't bleed out, Right,
because they're not bleeding out on the ground.
Right. This is funny. This is apropos of nothing. I'm changing the subject, but I don't get the newspaper in our town anymore. I just, it's been sold and it's not very good. And they're like 3 pages of news and the rest of it's fluff. But I look online and I look in the obituaries, and I saw a client of mine in this week's obituaries, and she is probably 20 years younger than I am. And she was one of my first clients, and a very, very admirable young woman. And I don't know why she died. I presume cancer, just the way it was written. She'd been married to an abusive guy. She had 2 children. She screwed up her courage to leave him. She met a wonderful man. She worked 3 jobs, put herself through school, and had a professional job.
Wow.
And I'd say, she's 40, 45, somewhere in there when she died. And it was really devastating. It was devastating to see her picture because she looked just the same. And I'd forgotten about her. I've had thousands of clients, thousands. And
Mm-hmm.
there she was. And I thought, oh, I remember you and I admired you. And she was working minimum wage jobs. And hey, listen, I'll pay you this much a month. And I knew that she would. And she did. And
Mm-hmm.
and she pulled herself up by the bootstraps and did right by her children. And I read about these children in the obituary. These children had done really well too. And it talked about their professions. And I thought about that and I thought how sad that she was gone, but how glad I was how everything worked out for her. That
Mm-hmm.
maybe if she had bled out, it wouldn't have worked out. Don't know. I don't know, but I spent
Absolutely. Well, and sometimes you have to stop the bleeding with your clients. I mean, I spend a lot of time stopping bleeding.
yes,
Um,
and
I,
we've talked about prices of websites. And
it's not just prices of websites, but competence of people doing the work. You know, honesty, integrity, those are things too that can also cause clients to bleed out in digital marketing as well.
just like they can in law, just like they can in
Absolutely.
just like
Because,
they
I
can in
mean,
accounting,
we've,
et cetera, et cetera.
we've been dealing with several situations lately where, we clean up. And I will tell people a lot of times, what do you do? Well, we fix broken marketing, we fix broken websites. Where we're literally coming in after the fact and cleaning up
Messes.
disasters that people have caused. And, you know, it's really, really frustrating because a lot of times people will lie, even when asked directly. Did you put these plugins on this website? Oh no, I only put one or two plugins on the website. Oh no, I only put 3 plugins on the website.
Well, then how the heck did they get there?
Then how the heck did you end up with an extra 15 plugins on this website?
Yeah.
Uh, did you verify these changes before you made them live on the client's website? Uh, you made these changes, you broke the website, you left it for 5 days. And because when you made those changes, you didn't test the site to verify that it was still stable after you made those changes. And then you rolled everything back 5 days later, potentially losing the client all of their sales for the week.
Yeah. How do you justify that? How do you? I don't.
And things that set Haley on edge, that one would be right there. And then lie about it.
And that's in a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Poor character is poor character. It doesn't matter what you do
Yeah.
for a living.
Yeah. And I mean, it's
And that
important.
that goes back to what we were talking about this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah. Character is character, and it always shows through in the end.
yes, yes, and entitlement,
Mm.
envy, jealousy. Um,
And that it tracks more entitlement, envy, jealousy into your life. And it pushes away prosperity and peace.
I don't get it, and I
Mhm.
told you that before. I don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't get it, and I never did.
But a lot of times people don't have that self awareness of what they're doing that is causing those exact things to happen. It's really tough to look in the mirror and see those. Because sometimes you can't look in the mirror straight on and see whatever you've got stuck to your backside. Like when you were a kid and you had that sign that said, kick me.
Kick me. There's a lot of dark stuff out there, and we started out about vibes and tribes. And if you choose to manage your life in that way, you're going to attract that.
Mhm.
Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. If you
Mhm.
if you want um, if you want quality people, you're going to have to start with yourself,
Yeah.
taking the high road, taking the
Mhm.
doing right by the people. And if you build it, it will come. No, I mean, no guarantee. That there are a lot of great people who don't succeed. I understand that.
Right.
And there are a lot of billionaire bad boys, and I understand that too.
Mhm.
And people say, well, it isn't fair. And I always say, well,
Well,
fair is where you get cotton candy.
fair comes once a year in the fall.
There you go. There you go. But you have choices on how you want to deal with people and how you want to behave. And there's just no excuse for poor behavior. There's just
Mhm.
no excuse for, um,
Unprofessional behavior.
yeah,
Or and it's also there's no excuse for taking advantage of people.
no. I mean, that's just dishonest.
Mm.
Um, hustling and,
Yeah.
I had a
And
secretary that embezzled me from me once upon a time. And um, that's its own that's its own psychopathology.
mhm.
What is it in you that thinks it is okay to steal from someone else,
Mhm.
um, other than I am entitled and I should have whatever, and I should have what you have, or
Mhm.
it's not fair that you have, or I work just as hard as you, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah, but but how do you justify theft? I mean, people will justify it till the cows come home.
Yeah, people will justify anything. They'll justify murder. They'll justify anything.
Mhm.
But that goes back to something you and I've talked about before. If you don't have a code, if you don't have a higher authority,
Right.
you can all of a sudden become shifting sand. You can
Absolutely.
justify whatever because everything becomes relative. Well, I'll steal this time because the kids are hungry, or whatever.
Right. No, and I've seen that too.
Yeah,
I'll lie about my children's ages to get into Disney World or at the buffet. And it teaches kids a really unique lesson.
yeah. Like, let me repeat mom's behavior.
Mm.
Let me be 29 and 32 years old, be in debt, not pay my credit card bills, not pay my school loans, not pay. Uh, oh, wait, I've been to Europe twice, I've been to Hawaii twice, and I wear $300 shoes. And the bill collectors are calling, and I'm not paying. Um, what's that about? That's
Mm.
learned behavior. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Well, and we model those behaviors and our kids pick them up.
mhm.
That's always been one of those things.
I have a friend who taught me this phrase, and that's what you allow, you teach. And
Mm.
if you do not correct with your employees, with your children, if you
Mhm.
don't correct, oh, yeah, okay, so he had an affair, I'm going to look the other way. Well, that's just an invitation for more of the same bad behavior.
Right. Because if it's happened once, it's probably going to happen again.
Yeah, chances are. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would say this to my client, if this guy isn't coming to you and saying, look, I did something really wrong. I did something terrible, and I will
Mhm.
do whatever you want to make this right. I will
Right.
do whatever you say has to be done. If he's not saying that, then you got nothing.
Hmm.
And that is applied to a lot of situations. That's
Yeah. Well, and one of the things is that leopards don't tend to change their spots very much.
mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think, well, and Freud used to say, you take the psychopath over the character disorder any day, because you can at least help the psychopath. I think character can change. I do.
Right.
But I think it takes I think it takes a couple things. I think it's you get down on your knees and say, God help me. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever you ask. Please, God help me. And then you get up off your knees and you work your fanny off to
Yeah.
be that better person. And I think that, yes, people do change. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous is filled with people
You have changed.
who have changed. Right, right. But that's a rare, that's not the everyday person.
Yeah.
And you and I have had some recent interactions with some people with bad behavior, and it's stunning to me that um, the unprofessionalism, the hateful talk, the refusing to accept part in it, like, listen, I made this mistake, and this is my part in this situation, and I did this and I did that, and I need to own this. However, this is what I see as your part. Do you see it? Can we work together? Can we resolve this? But this it, no.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Quite the epidemic of it going on.
Yeah, yeah. And so how do we become the person the best person we can be, so that we can attract the best tribe?
Mm-hmm.
That's the appropriate question. Is and we're talking about this in a business sense. And one of those things that we've talked about before is the life's too short client.
Yeah.
We cannot allow people who are the vampire clients, who are going to bleed us dry, who are going to take and leave you with nothing.
Sure.
So that's a start.
Yeah.
So build your tribe. How are you going to build your tribe? That's my first step.
Yeah. Relationships. And getting the right clients and the right people in your life and the right support system.
And knowing what you want. If you don't know what you want, how are you going to build it?
Mm. Right. I get it. Very interesting.
I think so. I think so.
Interesting points to ponder.
And I think that no matter what, I think that even when people have, I can think of people who haven't paid my bills. When I left my practice, I looked at those receivables and it broke my heart. But you still have to approach it from a civilized and appropriate and courteous position. You must start there. You must start, this is how it is. This is what needs to happen. This is my part in it. This is where it has to go. What say you? And if you're not willing to be that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally. Completely agree.
So what's next on our dance card?
What's next on a dance card? Really it's about building that network around us and becoming and focusing on becoming at a cellular level. How do we become at a cellular level who we need to be to attract those people we need to attract into our lives?
You start with a vision, I think.
Absolutely. But it all starts with us. It's not somebody else's, our situations, are really, we have way more control over our lives than we think we do. Yes, my life has been to hell and back in the last 4.5 years with my oldest daughter. And it's amazing how even when going through that, I've still had a remarkable degree of autonomy and ability to control and navigate the situation. Even when it didn't seem like I had very many choices, I still had some choices. Not all of them palatable, not all of them acceptable, but there were always choices.
I agree.
And sometimes you make the best of the absolute worst situation. And you do the best you can with
And
what
not
you've got.
choosing is a choice in itself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And abdicating, um,
Not choosing, not making a decision, delaying making a decision are all decisions. That's what I believe.
I waited a long time to get divorced. Um, I was married 14 years, 5 months, and 1 day. The first time I've
Not
been,
that you were counting.
not that I was counting, right? And I've been married almost 19 years this second time. And I think about that first marriage, how I got married on a Saturday night, and I knew on Wednesday I had made a terrible mistake.
Mm,
And I stayed for 14 years, 5 months, and 1 day. And I think about how
yeah.
the choices that I um, made me a, a better divorce lawyer, for one. I had lived a lot of it, but I abdicated my choices. The choices that I made were about waiting for my husband to change instead of for me to change. And I think a lot of us do that. I think we do it in business.
Yeah.
Uh, well,
Well,
make a move when such and such happens instead of I need to make this happen or I need to make these changes.
yeah.
And change is hard and change is fearful, fearsome.
Change can be extremely fearsome
Mm.
and painful.
Oh, hard, scary, and when you're alone, how traumatic. Um,
And you
life
realize
can be.
how alone a lot of times you really were anyway, and then how much more alone that you really do become, and how much you have to rely on yourself.
Yeah, and I I learned those things, and I learned
Mm,
them later, but I
right.
learned them, and occasionally things pop up that remind me of those times, or I'll meet someone who is experiencing something similar, and I'm reminded of how that is and um, how I abdicated
Hmm.
my life, and then in my late 20s realized nobody's going to fix this.
No,
Nobody's going to get better. Nobody's going to change. Um,
nobody's going to fix it for you.
no, no. And nobody is going to run in and say, Here, I'll save you.
Yeah.
And if they do that, it is an illusion. It's a mirage.
Yeah.
And I had to do the saving, and I did it. And it was hard, and it was long, and it was work, and it was, oh my God, and I'll never be the same again. But it got me to where I am today. And not everybody can do that work. And
No.
that's okay. I mean, not everybody can do it. But, I think about your daughter who has been so ill. Somebody had to do the work, and
Hmm.
you did it. And you kept her safe, and you kept your family safe, and you
Yep.
got her to a place where she can be well cared for.
Right. And then we're working on a permanent placement.
Yeah.
And
And
how lucky are we that she qualifies for permanent placement? I mean, really,
that
because a
brings
lot of
up
mental
another
health patients don't. Do what?
that brings up another point. That's a really, really, really important point, and maybe the most important point of the night. And that is if you don't start from a place of gratitude,
Mhm.
then you got nothing. And if you think about it, you could say, gratitude. What do you mean gratitude? I've got a daughter who had a traumatic brain injury, was in a coma for a month, fell off her horse, has never been the same, has this major mental illness diagnosis of which she will not recover from, will have
And
to
is
live,
not treatable
not treatable, will have to live in a
currently.
permanent placement for the rest of her life. Where's the gratitude? Well, the gratitude is that there is a place where she's safe and the family's safe and she
Mhm.
can be cared for and she can have the best possible life she can have under the
Right.
circumstances. And
And
there's
that's
a
pretty
quote,
amazing because there's a
yeah,
lot of people that don't have that level of safety and security in their lives, especially with mental illness, especially with the kind of diagnosis that we're talking about.
yeah. And like, let's look at 90% of them are in cardboard boxes living outside the McDonald's downtown, you know,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
maybe somebody didn't know how to do the work or wouldn't do the work or couldn't do the work or didn't have the brains or didn't have the means or didn't have the connections or didn't have whatever or didn't have
If you don't have the right combination of diagnoses or the right combination, like seriously, we happen to have
what you fought your ass off.
the
That's the
most
biggest part of it.
horrific series of diagnoses combined with a thick, mm, spectacular combination of delusions and ideations. And because she happened to have that whole trifecta, we were able to keep her safe. But if she had not, we wouldn't be.
But you also had the never give up
I'm
attitude.
alive, so of course I'm not going to give up.
Yeah, but a lot of people do. A
Oh,
lot of
sure.
parents do. You didn't give up. You went to the judge. You were prepared. You laid out the case, and you obtained guardianship to keep this girl safe. A lot of people just say, let the state take care of her. I give up. And I have a cousin. She's not much older than I am. She was a CPA. She got her CPA when she was 50. Her husband left her when she was, I don't know, 45. And she had worked in a family business that was his family business. So she had nothing. He went off to law school, left her behind with a child. She went off, got her degree, was so traumatized. She never recovered, had open heart surgery. After the open heart surgery, she could never hold a job. She couldn't think well enough after the open heart surgery to do the numbers, to do the tax accounting, to do the corporate accounting, all that stuff. And she has an adult son who says, my mother wasn't there for me. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, she was mentally ill. Your mother wasn't there for you.
Mhm.
Right. But she's mentally ill now and you're not. And you're an attorney and you have the means to take care of her. And he chose not to. And she is a ward of the state and she is in a nursing home. And I mean, they can't even cut her hair because she is so terrified to just have someone come in with scissors. And I think she's not much older than I am. And her sister,
Heartbreaking.
well, and her sister took care of her. Her sister took care of her until the girl couldn't live at home anymore and had to be placed in a facility because she was incontinent, because she was leaving the stove on, because she was lighting candles, because she couldn't live at home anymore.
Yeah, we've had that.
Yeah, she wasn't feeding herself. She was 90 pounds, whatever.
All of
And
those.
and the son said, "I don't want to take care of her. She wasn't there for me." And I think gratitude. You're there for her. You did the right thing.
Mm.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people
It's
don't.
tough. It's very
It's
tough.
very tough. Yeah, that's what makes it exceptional. It's really tough. I mean, if it were easy, everybody'd do it.
Well, we also, like I said, we were very lucky with the way that the events came down. I've known other people who have loved ones with similar diagnoses, and because they don't have the same delusions or the same ideations, they are unable to get help for their loved ones.
Well, but also in courts, judges are want to give people guardianships because perhaps your intention is to take her money. I mean, Obviously, your daughter at 21, who had been mentally ill for several years, didn't have any money. I mean, unless she inherited something I didn't know about. But a lot of times the judges don't want to be liable for this, because if
Well, and there's
you
guardianship of the person and then guardianship of the estate. I got guardianship of the person because there is no estate.
and I obtained guardianship of the person, and I said to the judge, name somebody else guardian of the estate. You tell me who's doing it. I'm a nurse, all right, it's one of my careers. And I said, I will make sure she's in the right facility. I will make sure
Mhm.
she's in the right nursing home.
Mhm.
I will make sure she gets care.
Yeah,
And
I do know.
it isn't easy.
No.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Sometimes you make the best decisions you can in a really crappy situation. And that's where integrity comes through, is making the best decisions you can in a really crappy decision.
That's right. That's right. Because otherwise it would be easy. It wouldn't require integrity. It would just be easy. I had guardianship of my grandmother,
Mm.
and she was just out of her mind and not able to take care of herself. And we had
Mhm.
to hire, there was a new guardianship law. We had to hire some psychotherapist who had to assess her to
Mhm.
determine her competency. And then he had to testify, and I had to testify. And the very next day was my first law school final, torts final. So the day I should have been studying my last bit of studying, I was spending my day in court making sure she was taken care of. And you got to do this stuff.
Mhm.
And you know what? It worked out, and I got a C in torts, and I don't care about that. But the practice turned out okay, so the C in torts didn't matter.
Yeah.
So
Apparently we have a traffic jam behind me.
yeah, and I'm thinking, boy, that's a lot of treats that she got.
There's two of them back there.
Oh my gosh.
You see? There's two. There's
Ah,
actually
yes.
two.
Yep. Yes, and I was just told that my two cats each had gained over 2 pounds since their last visit, so I have to limit their treats to two little pieces each. And they seem to be okay with that, because as long as they're getting treats, it's okay. It's just not a handful anymore.
Mm. Yeah, no, they're getting a little bit more than that, but they're also not getting a lot of other stuff too right now. We've cut back on other things as well.
What would we do without our little animals?
Yeah, what would we do, right? Ah, this has been fun.
This has been really fun, and I'm glad that we've talked about these things, and I'm
Yeah, me too.
grateful for people who join us. And I hope that people throw out some ideas. And I'd like to hear how they've handled some of these tough quandaries that have really required that they step up and put themselves aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear how they've handled them. I would like to learn from others how they've handled them.
Me too.
It's easy.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me. I love our Tuesday nights.
Me too. This is fun. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.